Okay, well, as everybody knows, having lived with Zoom and all these other platforms for quite some time during the pandemic, there's steps that you have to take to get everything up and going. So, welcome to Planetary Gig Talk Live. This is Ho'oponopono and Music Part II, Transitioning to Connectivity. I'm the host, Jefferson Glassie, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gigs Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, or as I like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. So pleased that we're able to sort of reconstitute this panel. We had a fabulous conversation a couple months ago on Ho'oponopono and music. Check that out on, our planetarygigs.org page or Facebook or YouTube. But first, let me introduce our panel, and then we'll kind of get right into it. First of all, so very, thankful to have Grammy award-winning percussionist with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, the amazing Roy Futureman Wooten. Roy, thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, thank you for having me again. And, it's always, exciting for me to be a part of something like this because, like I like art and music, but this whole Ho'oponopono has been a very important part of my inner, my inner navigating through the mysteries of art, and how art can, how art actually connects through the ages, so I'm just happy to be here with all of you all again, and looking forward to this.
Great, thank you so much. And also, he's the guitar monk. He plays with Joe Vitale, who is the author of the Zero Limits book, which kind of brought Ho'oponopono into a lot of the mainstream, and plays some beautiful, amazing music. And so glad to have sort of found him and have him be part of this conversation. Mathew Dixon, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you all again. I'm happy to be back. I look forward to wherever this conversation leads, and should be a good time. It was last time, so I expect the best.
Never know where it's going to go.
That's right.
and also my good friend, artist, illustrator, musician, beautiful, wonderful person, Patricia Raine, who we call Patty. Patty, thanks so much again for joining us.
Absolutely. I love this conversation. I could talk about this for hours. And Ho'oponopono's played a part in my life as well. So
yeah, it certainly has made a difference to me. And our focus has been on Ho'oponopono and music. I mean, you could talk for, as you just said, Patty, for eons about Ho'oponopono and Hawaiian spirituality and Polynesian spirituality and all that. We want to try to understand that, how we can, I guess, help make our lives better, make everybody's lives better, move toward to more connection. And but I think it would be helpful if, Patty, if you don't mind talking a little bit about just the basics of Ho'oponopono, but then also explain what you've been telling us recently. You've done some additional research about sort of some of the origins of Ho'oponopono, and be great if you could just sort of lay that out for everybody, and then we can keep going wherever we're going to go.
Okay, well, in our last episode, I'm going to refer to my notes here so I don't forget anything. There are antecedents to this in Polynesian culture, to Ho'oponopono. And it's believed that a person's errors, and they were called hara or hala, hala, caused illness. And I'm just reading straight from my notes here. And some believe that the error angers the gods. Others that it attracts malevolent gods, and still others believe that the guilt caused by the error made one sick. That was the basic, and a lot of Polynesian cultures used a process. It was not called Ho'oponopono. It was only called a Ho'oponopono later in the Hawaiian Islands. But they would use a process to alleviate this error. And let's say, in extreme cases, if someone did not confess an error, they would die. So it's got qualities of, all kinds of different cultures utilize these. They're called untie error rites. Untie the error. And Ho'oponopono, which is what it was named in Hawaii, is defined, I'm going to read straight from my notes here. It says defined in to put to rights, to put in order or shape, to correct, revise, adjust, amend, regulate, arrange, rectify, tidy up, and make orderly. Or in neat, administer, superintend, supervise, manage, edit, work carefully or neatly, make ready. And this is and make ready as canoemen preparing to catch a wave. Oh, that cool?
That is cool.
So, and then it's a mental cleansing, family conferences in which relationships were set right, ho'oponopono, through prayer, discussion, confession, repentance, and mutual restitution and forgiveness. So this takes us to, Bishop Tutu's Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. It was an extraordinary event where everyone came and told their stories and were heard and seen and felt. And so forgiveness could be actualized. And then so it says literally ho'o is a particle used to make an actualizing verb from the following noun. Here it creates a verb from the noun pono, which is defined as goodness, uprightness, morality, moral qualities, correct or proper procedure, excellence, well-being, prosperity, etc. And ponopono is defined as to put to rights, to make, to put in order or shaped, correct, revise, etc. No.
Thank you. Wow.
Sure. And then the ritual itself, I'm going to fast forward. There's all kinds of backstory to the ritual, but fast forward to Morna Simeona, who was a Hawaiian kahuna, shaman, who brought Ho'oponopono into the modern day. And she applied it not only to healing family relationships, karmic relationships, and I believe karma exists right here, right now. I don't think from my own experiences and work that I've done, I now don't believe we bring it in from other lifetimes. I think it exists right here, right now. Instant karma is going to get you, that you have to deal with things right here, right now. And she brought it into the present. So it's not only family relationships and, your immediate relationships, but it's your relationship with yourself and your connection with source. What is your relationship with yourself and your connection with source? And that's what her 14-step program did. And the 5th step in this program, the Morna Simeona 14-step, well, it's 12 to 14 steps. The 5th one is the Morna prayer that we would use, that a lot of people use to we would help to use it so to consolidate the 12 steps. And what I think, we'll go on with Hu Len, but I think what Hu Len did on his own, Morna Simeona died in 1992, 91, 92. And what Hu Len did in 1998 is go off on his own and devise a way for himself and for others, because he shared this, but he was having his own experience. He wanted to consolidate what he had learned from Morna. I assumed that he had her blessing. I think he just went off on his own and consolidated her 12 to 14 steps into 11 words, 4 phrases. And from my understanding of it is, yes, it does transmute karmic relationship. But for me, it dissolved all the hooks and flattened all the buttons so that you were no longer in a reactive state to anything, that you could enter into something without being overly reactive and then respond in the best way you knew how, rather than merely reacting to what's going on and being defensive. So I, in my own practice, just to close here, would use the Morna prayer with tapping. And the tapping we talked about last time with EFT, where you're tapping and you're breaking down the prayer to go with the tapping exercise. And what it does is it does calm down your body and it lowers cortisol levels. And we watched the effects of this when I was working with a woman doing horse workshops. The effect would be palpable on the horse because the human person would be, calmed down. So this, Hulen's 11-word mantra and Morna's 12 to 14 step process, which is much, there's a lot to it, does that. It does that.
So the way that we sort of think of it, when I think of Ho'oponopono, it's from the book Zero Limits, and it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Although I somehow always start with the I love you part.
Dessert first.
and so Joe Vitale took that and really, brought that to us. And Mathew, you've worked with Joe Vitale. You've got Ho'oponopono on your shirt. I know that it's been a big part of your music and your playing and your life. So what are your thoughts about, we had the last conversation, here we are now, a lot has happened in the last 2 months as we were talking about, the election and all this stuff. Sort of what are your current thoughts about it? And do you have some new perspectives or?
I don't know that they're new. They kind of just go back to the foundation. In fact, I was just on the phone with Joe yesterday, and we were having a conversation about my Facebook group, which is a cleaning group, and a lot of people are joining, and I don't do anything to promote it. They just find it, which is how it should be. And Joe was asking, do you see anything overwhelming that people don't understand or what they need to get from Ho'oponopono? And this is I call it a very slippery slope, which is it's really easy to get caught up in the terminology and the concepts, and we all want the easy button. I mean, that's just human nature. And for me to tell somebody what their experience is going to be with Ho'oponopono is very difficult. In fact, in a situation like this, doing an interview, the people who are watching, I can't qualify what you're looking for, where you're at, and how much I should share of my personal experiences of what maybe you'll get, or maybe you won't, or maybe you'll think I'm crazy, So what we came up with was the idea that the perception seems to be we want someone to do it for us, and there's a disconnect there. And Morna talks about the Aka chord, which is the chord that ties us all together to the source. And that goes beyond just people, that goes into every single physical thing in our realm. So we have to always look internally within ourselves, which is why you ask, what is it within me that I am seeing this data? And that is what you clean on. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you have to accept that everything you're seeing is coming from you. And that's a big one to accept. I'm not saying I do it perfect. I forget all the time. That is the strive that Ho'oponopono is all about. That's what Dr. Hulen went with. And it gets thrown back in your face quite a bit. For instance, Hulen, as Patty was saying, went off with the 4 phrases on his own and what was working for him, and then therefore shared it. And there's a quote in the book where he said, when this book comes out, the shit is going to hit the fan. And he tells Joe that. And sure enough, it does. Because it just depends on, kind of like Patty said, what page are you reading? where are you at? Like, it's not for me to tell you. So with that in mind, you have to go through the journey on your own. Now, to bring it back to a musical standpoint, you have to figure out where your seat is in the symphony of life. And that's the most important thing. So whether it's politics or relationships or illness or anxiety, or, the list goes on and on, you have to do your part to find out what you're supposed to be doing. And by doing that, you're helping yourself. By helping yourself, you're helping this outward appearance of your reality. And that is the forward motion. And I say it comes back in your face, for instance, there's not a whole lot of people I think know about it, but Joe was given a fifth phrase. And we call it test driving it. We test drove it for a couple of years. And in that process, I was actually given 4 additional phrases to the fifth phrase. So there's actually 5 of the 5 phrases. And that goes as a new tool. Now, immediately, there are people who are going to be like, you can't do that. You can't just come up with, say, hey, here's 5 new phrases. You're just trying to sell something new to me, or, no, that wasn't the purpose. This is what was working for me. I'm sharing it with you because I feel like that's my seat in the symphony, and that's where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. Whether I'm right or not, who knows? And Hulen says that. You never know if it's coming from inspiration or if it's coming from data. But you have to take action. You have to look for green flags and red flags. If you see green flags, go that direction, keep moving forward. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
It makes so much sense. And, I last time I said I had 4 new phrases come to me in a dream, so now we probably have an infinite number of phrases. So
well, and the universe is always expanding. So to think that Ho'oponopono stops at one point, traditional Ho'oponopono had its place and still does. But then there's the new modern version. Now there's 5 more phrases. You have phrases. I've actually had people write.
It's evolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to be open to it, you're open to it. If you don't, that's your choice. But when it comes back and someone says it to me, it's not them saying it to me. It's something in me saying it to me. So that's what I have to clean on. And that was Joe's point, is you have to clean on, how did he put it? He said, we have to clean on our interpretation of what we're seeing and what we're seeing from others, because it's not really them, it's us.
wow, Roy.
For people who don't know about Ho'oponopono, when you use the word clean, can we just explain that for people? Because I know Dr. Hulen talked about it a lot. Cleaning. How would you talk about what is cleaning?
Cleaning is making correct of the data that's within you. So you're trying to, and he uses the word transmutate, which is a big word. Almost sounds scary to me. It's like a weird transmutate. That's weird. A lot of times with clients, I use the concept of when you feel something bubble up, that's always the warning sign. So you kind of have to train yourself that, I'm feeling an emotion over this. And if you're feeling an emotion, that's fine. You should. I mean, people think enlightenment is being completely detached from everything, but it's not. It's accepting the emotion, feeling the emotion, and then detaching from the emotion. You have to have the experience. I mean, all the great things that we learn in life come from struggle and heartache, because that's where we actually grow. But we have the choice. Do we grow, or do we just get back on the wheel and run around again? Which sometimes we do for a long time, sometimes many years, for some people, sometimes their whole entire life. So I like to use the idea that when I feel something bubble up, I always say, swipe it to the side. I use swipe. I try to clear it out of my mind, and I go into my tool chest. For me, music is my juice. So, And that's what the arts are really all about, whether it's music or dance or sculpture or painting or crafts or anything. Every single being, and of course I say it as I say being, it's just the octave chord of the connection of myself, has a creative outlet. You have to, otherwise, what are you doing? Why are you here? Where is your seat in the symphony?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, man, you know, what I like about the conversations, I look at like Ho'oponopono, it's like another name for like Star Wars, where you talk about the force. You know, there's more to this reality that we're dealing with that meets the eyes. And a lot of times in our modern world, we don't believe in the force anymore, right? And so when we're talking about, to me, like Dr. Hugh Lin was this guy, but he talked about his mentor figure. So if Dr. Hugh Lin was Bruce Lee always talked about Yip Man, who taught him Wing Chun Kung Fu. So Bruce Lee comes out with Jeet Kune Do, this is his own thing. He's mixing stuff, he's evolving. But to understand Bruce Lee, you gotta understand Yip Man, right?
That's
and
right.
so to really put it together. So to me, this is the beauty of what we're talking about. To understand Luke's, go ahead, huh?
This is not new information by any means. I mean, I carry this book with me all the time, if you can see it, the Hagakure, which is the way of the samurai, written in the 17th century, never to be published. But after the master passed, the students decided to publish the book, and now you can get it on Amazon because that's how it works, you know. But even though this is a book for samurais, it's actually just a guideline to life and the way you should try to focus your life and live.
Yeah.
And the force, you don't have to believe in it for it to not be there.
Yes, right. But it's like the beauty of it. I'm trying, you know, for people who to get a sense of what's happening. It's almost like, to me, like to understand King Arthur, we've got to understand Merlin. You know, we've got to go to the wizard. You know, and so when I look at Ho'oponopono and all that stuff that we learned from Hugh Lin, you know, he kept referencing his mentor Morna, and it's like, well, there's now, to understand this movie, there's a backstory to the movie. So understanding that backstory is what makes it even like so rich. And so with it being so evolutionary, for me, my nickname is Future Man. I'm always pointing to the future, right? But it's like, for me to start playing drums with an instrument like this, like, what does something like this have to do with a drum set? See what I mean? Like, I'm just way out on a limb here, man, right? But to do something like this, like, I'm always thinking like I'm a branch on a tree, right? And the leaf that's furthest out is connected. It is, you know, the leaf that's furthest out is connected to its limb, that's connected to the trunk. The trunk connects to the ground that digs into the earth. And that's connected all the way down. What's that?
I got a whole presentation based on that, which is, you know, the roots. Some people call them the roots. Some people call this the trunk. Some people call it the branches. Some people call that the leaf. When you back up, it's just a tree. And it's just a tree. And yeah, that's so funny that you say that. That's my whole spiel on that. Yeah. Where I say it's a slippery slope, though, is I totally agree with you, where, you know, you do want to go back and, you know, you don't want to hear from Luke, you want to hear from Yoda. And maybe Star Wars will eventually tell us where Yoda went to, you know, because there was somebody before Yoda that made him. But the slippery slope is you get caught up in that idea of, well, the answer's there, the answer's there, the answer's there. You've got to bring it back at some point and go, take the information, but realize that all of that information, Merlin, Yoda, whoever, is you, because you are the leaf and
it's
are the tree.
And
it's temporal, it's temporary.
Yes.
Best part of evolution. I mean, what I was trying to say, I would like to have heard, we talked about this prior to broadcast, I would have liked to have heard Hugh Lin talk about that when he was at the hospital, he used Morna's 12-step program. So that's important. It's important to acknowledge certain things you know, and to acknowledge your own evolution within Morna's evolution.
But see, it's important for you because you're ready for it. But is it important to someone else?
Well, I would just say that, speaking for me personally, like I was a part of a group of about 30 people, and I really thank Joe Vitale for this, because we all heard about this amazing feat of Dr. Hugh Lynn healing this criminally insane ward. And Joe Vitale went through an extreme effort to find this guy, to get him to answer the phone, then to get him to say just more than 4 phrases, then to invite him to just tell us more to a small group. So we were all there. And if he would have given it to us, we would have been very excited, and it wouldn't have taken away from his 4 phrases, but it wouldn't have taken away anything from that presentation. Like even now, I still that guy going, wow, this is what you were doing. This is what you were actually doing.
That
This
makes
is what-
it,
yeah,
right,
that-
it makes it even
yeah.
more, right. It makes it even more palpable.
It makes it even more powerful. And literally, I have the video that I shot of that. Okay. So Zero Limits, I filmed it myself, right? So now I go, wow, it doesn't take anything away from that moment. It's like, but this is how he was working it and how he evolved to his breakdown of it. It's like the future. We're the avant-garde. We get a chance to put it all together. See what I'm saying? We coming after, whoa, this is what Luke Skywalker said. This is what Ben Kenobi taught. And this is what Yoda taught them. We don't know how the Emperor got his power, right? It's like, wow. And so we're the avant-garde. We're at the edge of the sword putting it all together. And as an artist, I'm just like, give me the artistry. Okay, Merlin told King Arthur to do this. And King Arthur, this is what you were learning from Merlin. I want to know that, right? I want to know that, because to me, that's what we're applying to our art. You know what I'm saying? Because like right now, it's art that's got to change the world.
It's all derivative.
Yeah, but keep in mind that the 4 phrases,
yeah,
it's really just a stepping stone. It's an introduction.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the point.
Because like I said, it's not for me to try and tell somebody else what your journey is going to be.
No.
That's not quite what we're.
That's not what I'm saying. Yeah.
The 4 phrases, the 11 words are certainly a stepping stone, and a valid one.
Absolutely.
Very valid one.
The introduction.
But everyone is going to have a subjective experience.
Exactly.
Everyone's experience is subjective, including Hulen's experience within Morna's evolutionary 12 to 14 step program. He had an evolutionary experience.
Which
what
is
I would have, as you said,
I think it's important to do what Roy's saying, which is go back and get the backstory.
yes,
But don't get caught up that the backstory is the answer, because now you have the info. Now you create your story.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I would agree to tie that together. You're not getting hung up that the backstory is the answer, but now we have the backstory and the front story and our story. You know what I mean? Where we're gonna go with it. It's kind of like, now I know King Arthur's story. Now I know Merlin's story. I know Luke Skywalker's story. I know, Yoda's story. And here we are on the avant-garde. We're dealing with a pandemic right here. My business is shut down, right? So how can this force be applied to the art that needs to happen now? Art can't be shut down in any age. The age of dictators try to shut it down. Shostakovich writes his symphonies anyway. Stravinsky says my music doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to do with anything. Yet he's writing Pulcinella, the puppet, and he's controlled by the government. And the whole thing is political, but they're like quiet. Shakespeare's writing in code. See what I'm saying? Art doesn't disappear. So this right here to me is like, wow, here we are on the avant-garde cutting edge of this force that's speaking to us about how we move forward now, and how do we go forward with this. To me, it's what the beautiful part of it is. And to me, it's like I can now revisit my video and go, okay, boom. Because even when I first met Dr. Hugh Lynn, man, it was like, man, he pointed to the solar plexus. It was so nice. He said, it's all in you. you know, and I just like the way he just, you know, he was like a little Yoda, man. He's like, it's all in you. And everybody would get hung up on the politics. I think it was Bush at the time, the little Bush, not the senior one, but the little one.
A little Bush.
Yeah. And he would say, you know, it's not out there. You know what I mean? It's all in you. You know what I mean? So don't get fixated on the problems that you're looking out there. And to me, it always reminded me that it followed the rules of a dream. Anytime the Bible and stuff gets real mystical and stuff like that, it always kind of follows the rules of a dream, where it's like, you know, we have this experience, but you know, there's something beyond just the experience that we're experiencing. In the dream, you actually have control. Like you're the author of the nightmare that you're in somehow. And it seems like he kept getting at that. And so when we get into art, I believe like the way forward for art is going to have something to do with this power, this force. I mean, like if I go off the beaten track, right? I've read like these super scientific books where they talk about these hit records that were like, they did these certain rituals over these pop records to make them like super hit records and stuff like that. And I just like the idea that we could practice like a Ho'oponopono or something like that. You know what I mean? Where we're connecting with a source. The artist understands we're connected to a source where we all connect. That's one thing Dr. Hugh Lin did talk about. But I have to give it to Joe Vitale, because he would not let him stop at those 4 phrases. He said there has to be more. And so he would get him to talk about the higher self. There's multiple layers to who we are. Just like we have a conscious, subconscious. Go ahead. You
that's what I was trying to say. Anytime you take a sequence or you know, a period of time, and some great enlightened thing comes forward, like we'll take Morna's, you know, 12 to 14 steps. That was a great enlightenment for her to bring it, both talk about family and then bring it into the inner world, your relationship with yourself and source. What's your relationship with yourself, you know? And there is an out there. There is an environment, but you've got to be able to navigate the environment. What you want to do, it seems to me, and you talk about art doesn't you know, art, any artist worth their salt, musician, artist, painter, knows that the death knell to art is when their art is institutionalized. And when you fix on it, and you, Matthew, you had talked about don't get fixed on it. That's part of evolution. Evolution doesn't fix itself. It learns a stage, and then it goes to the next stage. It evolves from each stage. But my issue, and this was my issue because I did a lot of work on it this morning, was to assign, as you're talking about Yoda and Merlin, assign provenance, attribute what's going on. You can attribute. I came from this medium. Yeah. I emerged out of this medium.
Yeah.
This is the medium from which I emerged. Learn about it. This is the medium. This is what informed me.
Yeah.
And now here's what I've come up with. And this works for me. And I think, you know, you might resonate. That's all you can say to anybody. And to Matthew, to your point, everyone has a subjective experience to everything. It's a subjective, it either resonates or it doesn't. And that's what we're having a difficult time with now. People don't recognize there are facts out there, literal, provable, indisputable facts that people are disputing. So how do you get around that, you know?
So let me just, this is amazing conversation. Thank you so much. You know, Roy was just talking about, so it's kind of up to the artist to set the way. And we have this background, you know, that we're looking at of something very unique and special. And I think the last time we talked about, you know, music comes from a very special place, and Ho'oponopono can kind of help you get to that place yourself. And we want to help ourselves be better, more in harmony, etc. But on a practical level, at this sort of inflection point in history, which does seem to be, I mean, I know every point is like an inflection point, but there's a lot of stuff going on. how do we as artists make our intention with this knowledge and this feeling to move ahead in a way that's really kind of good for everybody? Maybe to say, the roots of all the trees are connected, the artists and musicians are connected. How do we grow into something that does help everybody, that provides shade for everybody? So we can let it go, or we can have the intention, as in Victor Wooten's book, The Music Lesson. It always comes to me. This is just sort of a watchword when Michael says, the teacher, intention is the key to everything. So can we channel what we've learned from Ho'oponopono into a collective intention, maybe developing platforms for musicians, for artists that, can really help the whole situation? Because as Patty said, we do have people who are looking at things from different perspectives. Roy?
I would say yes, just because when Matthew talked about, having a Facebook group where everyone's there cleaning, I remember Dr. Hugh Lin just saying that, when we're dealing with this force, it was shown to him, and he says, yeah, he can't explain this, but it was shown to him that him cleaning and working with this person right here was helping a pregnancy way on somewhere on the other part of the world. So what they were doing here was helping someone have an easier pregnancy somewhere. Now he's saying,
effect.
huh?
Butterfly
effect.
Yes, the butterfly effect. He's saying there's no logic that you can follow that. So when you have a bunch of people, I think that's why I wanted Matthew to talk about cleaning for people who've never even heard the term cleaning. What is cleaning? You're working on yourself to help clean this moment, to help clear the blockages, to help untie, the discords and stuff that are happening now. But I think it's such a profound thing when you have more than 2 people, 3 people, however big your group is, and people practicing this. To me, it's a butterfly effect that's changing the matrix. You know what I mean? Like we are like collectively the 100th monkey. 2 monkeys learn how to wash their sweet potatoes, and before you know it, they're washing their sweet potatoes on the other islands that are not even connected. I believe that is what we're looking at.
Right.
Not in a way that's explainable. Sorry, Jefferson. Go ahead.
So sorry, but in transcendental meditation, Maharishi there was this thing called the Maharishi effect, where if you had 1% of the population meditating, this is what the deal was, then that would have a calming effect on everybody. The murder rate would go down and all these kind of things. And maybe in some respects, we're talking about the Ho'oponopono musical effect. If more people are playing music or doing art with this perspective of, this is my responsibility, it all comes from me, thoughts?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm sorry if I'm cutting somebody off, but like as I started going back to some of the Kahuna and Morna and where she came from and stuff, when you start going back there, you start seeing how those cultures, they embraced karma and reincarnation and stuff that modern religions kind of don't want to deal with, and so that being a bedrock underneath, when you're making things right, they're saying that things that are happening now that may be the result of other issues that have happened. What he said, I think Matthew called it source. But sometimes it's not because of something that happened before. Sometimes it's inspiration from the moment moving forward, And I just think that, our relationships to each other are going to be strengthened. And if we're like really into it, and as we learn about Dr. Hugh Lin and Joe Vitale, and then here's Morna. We kept pointing to Morna, just like Bruce Lee keeps pointing to his teacher, Yip Man. And it doesn't take away, Bruce Lee called his thing Jeet Kune Do, a whole new thing, right? But he said, I'm putting together this from Wing Chun and I'm finding my way to improve on it. And when you start putting these stories together, then I just believe that our relationships to each other are just going to get stronger, especially when you start seeing artists, being able to apply it to their art and survive. I really think even the survival of the art to be able to thrive. I'm an artist, man. I'm looking at the movie industry. suffering right now. Music industry suffering right now. Comedians down. The soundtrack of this pandemic story is out of work right now. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking to the force. You know what I mean? I'm looking to the force. What is the force? What is it in this dark night of the soul that's going to allow, you know, the force to come through stronger?
Well, it is a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And the upside of this, if there is an upside, is that there is an explosion of creativity going on right now.
Yes.
Explosion. Why? Because people have time and they've got blinders on and they can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So
and not to go back. Oh, sorry.
I wanted to ask you, Matthew, too, about what Jeff had said about cleaning, because I have a comment to make about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, remind me, I'll address that. I wanted to go backwards a little bit to something Roy said earlier that I think will actually catch up to the topic. But you basically said that art can't be stopped. And it's funny that, you know, capitalism and there seems to be a fear of stopping the arts. Going all the way back to, you know, you guys probably know the flatted fifth, which was called the Devil's Tritone, which there was a point in history, for those of you who don't know, it was illegal to compose music using those notes. You know, they were trying to stifle that then. And it's not the devil's, you know, it's not a devil's chord. It's, you know, it's a flatted five, you know, it's no big deal. But watching, you know, as soon as music was able to be recorded, there was this whole new, it's very exciting. Now, you know, you could sing into a can and you could now listen to the music whenever you wanted to versus going and seeing the live experience, which is very, very different. Obviously, you're not getting the juice and the energy from the live performance. I remember in the early 90s when the ADAC came out. And then shortly, I saw that happen and I thought, wow, this is a game changer. They were expensive and they were, you know, difficult to work with a little bit, but you got your hands on those and all of a sudden you didn't need a recording studio. We watched recording studios just kind of go into the toilet, with the exception of, you know, the pristine ones, because all of a sudden it was like, you need an engineer, you need a producer, you need these things. Moving forward on that, right now, it's the same kind of thing. You can sit and complain and fight against what's holding you back. And especially in the capitalistic world of the people who are, I don't want to use names, but iTunes and, you know, I'm going to, they're trying to get their piece and control you and tell you, well, oh, you wrote a hit song, write another one just like it. That's not art.
Institutionalization.
Yeah. So right now, for all the artists out there, keep in mind, there are no rules. There are no rules, and there shouldn't be rules, because art shouldn't be foundationed by a govern of, you have to do it like this, A to B to C, you know. I mean, it's been done. You know, the Swiss at one point had a formula where they were just writing hits. There's a book that I read on it where mathematically they could tell you, this is a hit song, you'll be great. Here you go, ABBA, do it, you know. And was it a hit? Yeah, it was.
Really algorithms.
Yeah, but now that we're done with that, what do we do next? You know, what is the next move? And so right now there are no rules. So you don't have to, I keep going out back with my dogs and I hit this wind chime and I keep listening to it. And I know I'm going to put it on one of my next recordings. I'm like, I'll come out here and record this wind chime because it really sounds neat, you know. It'll be great. I don't know where it's going to be, but there's no rules to do it. And that's the nice freedom that we have. The technology does support that. I mean, this room is where Joe and I have created all of our music and our meditations. It's just a room in my house, but technology gives us the freedom to just go with inspiration in the moment and say, all right, nobody's looking over our shoulder saying, you got to sell 1 million, man, you know, or else you're going to get shelved, you know. We have that, and that's I think is the point of being able to let it grow and let it be something new. You know, Roy, you're I'm gonna probably misname it from last time. your Mozart compositions that you were describing. Was it Black Mozart? Or
Yeah, the Chevalier St. George, yes.
yeah, and you said, you know, you would lay stuff down and you were so in the moment, you didn't know if it was good or bad or what it was. And then you go back and go,
whoa,
there's something there, you know. You know, tell me the label that would allow that. You know?
Yeah, I know Linda is off screen here. Linda Helms, if you want to jump in, or Annie, and add to the conversation, because you know, I tend to focus a little bit on what can we do. You know, imagination is so important. Einstein talked about it, but we can talk about it, all this stuff all day long, and that helps because that's really sort of what we're doing at Planetary Gig Society, is having conversations, not doing music, but having conversations about music in different aspects as a way of, you know, just trying to be a drop in the pond to sort of spread out. So let's see, somebody
That's
mute.
Everybody's got their.
Annie, can you mute? I'll mute her. Linda, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just love this conversation. I agree with everyone. And is the sound okay? I put my earbuds in, so you
Yes,
had said
good.
that it was a little echoey. Okay,
This
good.
is Linda Helms, everybody.
Hi.
Hey,
Just so wonderful. I love the whole conversation, and I agree with everything everyone's saying. I mean, it's such a rich, powerful discussion. You know, my focus is education, and so I'm always looking at how I can bring these tools, because what I'm creating is a big platform that has lots of tools for students, and it's all based in art. And
Yes.
so I love the conversation of tying Ho'oponopono in, and I have used it with, like I said before in the last one, with high school students, but I'm working on trying to create these tools for younger students, you know, from K through 12. And so you guys have given me so much inspiration and ideas, and I'm kind of coming up with you know, like a paragraph of everything that you've said, to put everything together for the process. So I'm almost done. So when I get it finished, which I'm almost done here, I'll read it to you. Okay.
Well, so, you know, that we're talking about a platform for education for students.
Mhm.
It sounds like that artists and musicians, to me, could use a better technological platform or internet platform, whatever you want to say, as opposed to just Facebook or something, to really be able to collaborate, to share ideas, to put things out there. I don't know who wants to start that up, but
TikTok seems to come to the fore. I mean, TikTok is allowing for, talk about an explosion of creativity. I mean, geez, what's on there is incredible.
it
There's
is.
people are just itching to create.
Yes, they create a lot of videos, and amazing ones that I've seen. I haven't gotten on TikTok yet, but you know, maybe that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, and I just believe too, like you know, thinking with Ho'oponopono and people like really the term inspiration, you know, what if there was a platform that allowed people to create original content and then they shared in the ad revenue, kind of like YouTube lets you share in the ad revenue after you get so many views. But what if that was the basic foundation of the platforms, that, you know, so many views, whatever the ad revenue share is, that, you know, you're sharing in it. And I think it would encourage a lot of original content even more. YouTube is leading the way on that, but you know, Facebook could do it. There may be another kind of Facebook platform that will do that in the future. Encourage people to create original content. The more views you get, the more ad revenue, you know, you share with the eyeballs that you get.
Yeah, I think a better platform is warranted. I think the Facebook platform, though, I mentioned that, you know, everything you put on Facebook, the copyright is shared with Facebook, and they can use your content however they like.
Right.
With no remuneration.
Right. So that's already not fair thinking. You know,
Right.
Yeah. That's some under the table. Nobody's reading what we're writing. You know, unconscionable contract.
And
right.
even YouTube hasn't sort of an impossible bar. I mean,
Yeah.
so I agree.
Yeah, I think there's a TikTok kind of attitude that will allow people to just participate in it. And I just say that because I believe as we move into the future, whatever we can triumph that allows us to be human, what it means to be human. Because if I was a politician running, man, we're competing with AI. You know what I mean? AI is going to take a lot of the jobs and stuff. So whatever we can do to create the economy just by being human, just by being creative, just by being interesting, just by sharing what we like to do with a bunch of people, and a lot of people are getting into it. I mean, I think that we should be fair with each other on this. And in some kind of way, Ho'oponopono relates to all of this. You see what I'm saying? We're thinking fair-minded. You know, we forgive the past for being greedy. You know what I mean? You know, we forgive them for being like that. It's easy to be greedy. That's maybe the first natural thing, but it's like, maybe there's another way. Like I'm saying, we're on the avant-garde, putting together what Merlin taught King Arthur, what Yoda taught Ben Kenobi, taught Luke Skywalker, what Zorro's teacher taught Zorro. You know what I mean? We're putting together all of it. And how can we improve? Mm-hmm.
The problem that I see with the platforms is they, in my opinion, they all eventually end up somehow corrupted.
Thank you.
And most recently, YouTube, someone made a attack against me through YouTube for copyright infringement on one of my songs that I did with Joe. And we're still in battle. It's a legal battle now because I just said, there's no copyright problem here. I have the master tracks if you want to hear them, you know, but you are guilty until proven innocent in their eyes. So that always happens. I go back to what Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction said years and years ago. He said, they can never take live music away from you. And that's true. So new platforms come and new platforms go. But the one thing that we have as artists is kind of like Jefferson, you were talking about the island where your ultimate dream is to, you know, do events with music and workshops and things like that.
Music and nature camp, yeah, like
music and nature camp, yeah. And much like Roy, you know, the Wooten Farms or is that Wooten Woods?
Woods.
Yeah, Woods, yeah.
Yeah. Those are the experiences that are going to be unable to be taken away as far as I can see. And it's difficult because not everybody can get there, of course, but if you really want to, you can find a way. And then we can fall back onto the platforms and say, like, even with this recording right now, there are people who are at work and can't get on and watch this live, but you know, Jefferson, you'll be posting it later. It'll be on your Facebook group. It'll be on YouTube, and people will be able to watch it again.
Yeah,
we can fall back to that, and then also creating a platform. That idea, which is a great idea, of course, but that's so far out of my wheelhouse. But somebody out there listening, that might be their wheelhouse. Maybe they know how to do it. Maybe they know how to govern a board so that not only one person has control. Maybe they have a way to make sure that the platform isn't sold to a huge corporate conglomerate that throws so much money at your face, you go, all right, take it.
You know, my business, my career has been working for nonprofit organizations, no stock, you know, it's about governance, sort of everyone sharing everything. But you know, what your point, Matthew, about, you know, they can't take away the live music. Well, I mean, there have been some regimes that have tried to do that, as you mentioned with the tritone. But you know, one of the things that happened to me in the last year is I ended up in Rishikesh, India, and happened to walk into a music ashram. I thought, music ashram, man, there ought to be 1 billion of them. And then we sort of talked about having a motto of every home a music ashram, or every home an artist's workshop.
Well, and that's where the house concerts, they're not happening right now, but they will again. I've been to them. I've even played some. They're a wonderful environment. It's a small group, it's a small setting, it's intimate, but you get that vibe, you get that feeling, you get that experience, and people can actually get the full treatment of what they
Like
want.
the original coffee house, the bitter end.
Oh yeah, I used to think coffee shops were my jam.
So,
And nowadays, you could do a house concert and people from every continent could be there.
Oh, they'll show up. Yeah.
I mean, virtually.
Virtually.
So, and I think more will happen with the ability to share that way. But
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Dr. Len said at one point, I don't know if this was in the book or if it was at one of the Zero Limits events, but he said it's not about getting as many customers as possible. It's about getting the right customer.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's really the point. Now, that's not the way that a corporation thinks. They want as many as possible,
Mhm.
but you don't need that once you move beyond the greed and focus on the message.
Yeah, and
I'm-
that's great. And as a platform, hold your point, Patrick. Don't
Okay,
forget what you're gonna say.
Okay.
But because I might forget what I was gonna say. I was gonna react when you hear people, entrepreneurs like Seth Godin talk about an artist just going for 1,000 true fans. So you're not trying to reach million, but if you can just get 1,000 true fans on a membership or something like that, right there, you've already created your core thing. So yes, that is a viable new different way for artists to go too. Not trying to get 1,000,000 people, just even 1,000 true fans.
a Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon.
I was, but as an illustrator, when I started out instinctively, this is in the 80s and 90s, I would make up a list of only 50 people, and everybody said, no, you got to use the salmon approach, get everything out there. No. I made a list of 50 people that I wanted to work with. And I vetted all the art directors. And then I sent them direct mail. And in direct mail, 1% return is considered good. I got an 80% return. Why? Because I spent the time to consolidate. No, these are the people. I don't want to work with everybody. I just want to work with the people I resonate to. And sure enough, and then out of that 80%, I got 60% jobs. So it still works today.
Know your audience.
Know your audience, exactly. Exactly.
Another perspective, and Matthew, you've said, referenced the capitalistic system a couple times, and when you think about so much trouble in this pandemic, well, a lot of the trouble is people just don't have enough money to stay home and not infect other people. They got to get out of work, and of course we have essential workers and things. But I remember having some conversation on social media at one point, and somebody said, well, humans are takers. Humans want as much as they can get. And that's the basic of the capitalistic system. You buy something, more people want it, the price goes up, yada, yada. But I thought, I don't think that's really right. I think humans are creators and contributors. I mean, whether it's a musician or an artist or a plumber or a bridge builder or a dressmaker or a healthcare worker or a teacher, people really want to do what they can do, what their passion is, and contribute. And our system doesn't quite really reward that. It rewards the takers. So maybe part of the new platform, is Roy, you're talking about, people getting on a platform and being able to share and everything. We had universal basic income, and everybody knew that they would have their rent paid and have enough food and clothes and the basic necessities. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Then you can go off and contribute. I think if everybody on the planet did what was their passion, we wouldn't need any money. Everybody would just want to share.
Yeah, except, again, I say that, with trauma is where growth comes from. For instance, nobody knows this, but last week I found out that my main distributor out of New York has been kicked off of Facebook for their ads. I don't know why exactly. I'm sure it was nothing they did wrong, but they got removed. This is 85% of my income comes from these people. And talking to Joe, because he also works with them, he said, yeah, it doesn't look good. They'll figure it out eventually, but we need to pivot. We need to look elsewhere. And that's the thing. I can sit and be scared and worry about it, or I can look at it and go, okay, what haven't I been looking at? I've become very relaxed with the fact that every 2 weeks I go to the mailbox and there's a check from these people, and it allows me to keep my work flowing, you know? And now that's gone. So now what do? That makes me do something. So having that what you could say is an awful experience especially for people out there, it's only awful if you accept it as being awful.
Right.
You now get to look at it and go, hey, you know what? I've always done knitting. Maybe I could do some knitting and take it to the farmer's market. You know, whatever. You pivot, you find a new way. You know, I always like to think of, I think we're all cats. You know, you throw a cat in the air, they always land on their feet. That seems to be the outcome for most people, as long as you're willing to take the jump. And that's the scariest part. You know, you look at the ledge, you go, I think I'll just sit back here and complain. Well, that's your choice. But it's that struggle that pushes that creativity out of us. Otherwise, we get too comfortable. And that's not the point. Then the growth stops.
And in some ways, Ho'oponopono, you know, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, clean, move ahead.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine in town that when everything shut down and nobody was allowed to gig anymore, he went online and started doing live streaming concerts, playing his piano. And he was making more money doing that than he was showing up to the local bars and coffee shops and piano bars. He found a way real fast, something he would have never tried, and something that maybe nobody would ever listen to. And now the audience is even bigger than it was before, all because of this one problem, which was really not a problem. It was just a nudge going, hey man, what are you going to do now? Well, I'll try this. Green flag, it works, keep going.
Yeah. I like that. What are you going to do now? And somehow I believe our conversation with Ho'oponopono is going to be part of what's going to be a part of what we're going to do now. And I just keep, for people that are new, who never heard about Ho'oponopono, I just love how last time we talked, Patricia, you talked about it's like a method of untying stuff that's wrong, has become all tangled, and Ho'oponopono helps to untie it. And at the end of the day, it helps you to unball your fist. You know, it just helps you to unball your fist. Because I mean, I just look at hip hop and all these music. Everybody's got a beef with somebody. This guy's got a beef with that person. Trump's got a beef with Biden's got a beef with Trump. Everybody's got a beef with somebody, right? And just like Ho'oponopono said, well, do you know every time you have a beef that you're there somehow? You know what I mean? It takes two to dance. It takes two to tango. So some kind of way, man, like Ho'oponopono is showing us a way, like maybe if I just unball my fist, you know, and find another way to untie what this beef is about. And
well, what would Star Wars be without Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
You need a villain, and they continued on, and sure enough,
yes,
exactly.
Right.
Not to ruin the Star Wars movies for you all out there, but
right.
But happy resolution, kind of.
Yeah.
In other cultures too, you talk about, you know, I talked about unclenching the fists. Well, in other cultures, the idea of I Ching, for example, he talks about not opposing anything. Do not oppose, and that's a martial. You don't oppose it. You deflect it.
Yes.
You deflect it. You cause it to go by somehow.
Yeah.
And the only way you can cause it to go by is not holding a position of, you know, an opposition in yourself. There is no opposition in music when you do art or music. You know, you might have resistance to certain things, whatever, but you don't go into it with a sense of opposition and trying to conquer art. You can't do that. You go into this with a kind of openness that you're naturally protected, you're observant, you're responsive, you're not reactive. And that's what Ho'oponopono is about, trying to calm your own reactivity, which I talked about earlier.
Mhm.
You accept the energy
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
But-
accept it as part of the flow.
right. But do not oppose.
Right.
You know, and the idea of resistance and opposition, the whole idea, you know, it sounds good, but
Easier
it
said
gets you
than
into
done.
a lot of trouble.
yeah, you're not trying to beat up the bass player. You really want to uplift other people in the audience. You got a chair in the symphony. So this is fabulous conversation. I guess what I'd like to suggest is maybe everybody could just have a last comment. Linda, if you're out there, I took you off screen because you were busily writing on your paragraph. If you've come up with your paragraph and you want to share it, let us know. But just a comment on what your thoughts are about this and where do we go? What's the next step? Or what would you invite people to do? Or what should we do? Or anything like that. But just to sort of kind of wrap up the conversation to now. Who knows? We may have a part 3.
Well, I do have the paragraph written.
Okay. Let me come back on screen.
I can't. You
I
have
think I
me.
have to ask you to do that.
Yeah.
Hold on. There we go.
Okay.
Everybody understands all these things now, right?
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Now you're at the top of my
Um,
screen.
There you go. Well, I also wanted to just say a little bit about what you were talking about, Matthew, as far as the integrity of these new platforms that are coming out. And we have solutions for those. For example, our education platform that we're doing, we're working with the Center for Humane Technology. And even though this isn't, our platform is an offering, it's a nonprofit, it's not a monetary or commercially based project. There are still things that have to be looked at so that when you're developing a new platform, especially for students, one of our intentions is to try to replace at some level the Facebooks and the Instagrams in a way that is healthy, because of all of the problems that we have seen with our young students that these kinds of social media platforms are inducing. And so, we're working at that, but, we have a team of experts that know, because these are the guys that invented the things that actually have really made some serious problems for our young people. So when you go into it with the right intention and you have integrity, and that's the number one thing, integrity, you can build the right kinds of platforms. And I love your idea, Roy, about sharing in the monetary part. I wouldn't know how to do that, but for me, it's easy because this isn't about a monetary process. It's just about something that's an offering. And it's also going to be something that will support artists, not just students, but artists around, because that new technology will come forth through this. So that's what we're hoping for in that. So the paragraph I wrote, I'll keep working on it, but for now, it's the Ho'oponopono helps us align to the force.
Mm.
And it gives us a powerful tool that helps bring to our art and our life, because life is our art, and unknown inspirations and solutions that can be immediately implemented in our physical reality.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have
Yeah.
to write. I'll have to write that up. You can maybe send that to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will.
On that.
That's, Linda, that's classic theory into application.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. Yes.
That's
I'm
beautifully
trying to
written.
I'm thinking of how, because I'm making a very big presentation to some very influential people for what we're trying to build for this platform. So I want them to know that this is the kind of intentions that because self-empowering and these kinds of tools are what's absolutely the structure of what we're trying to build, along with all of the technology and stuff. So thank you. And I'll send it around. And if you have any changes or ideas to add, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I may send some music that you can take examples of art being used, music being used in an instructional way. Because I've taken some books and put them to music, you know, and narrated by hip hop artists and music, and you're just listening to the book like this. Yeah, kind of like Hamilton learning, you know, like we're learning about history. Who's gonna read about Hamilton, man? You know what I mean? It's the number one play. That's the attitude, you know.
That
And
would be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
and again, just to send this out to people who are listening, when we talk about platforms in the future, I can just envision kind of like if you're going to participate in this platform, like there's a button where you can hit monetize or demonetize if you don't want all the commercials and stuff. If you just want it straight without all that stuff, but if you want to go into the monetize thing, like all the people that come to your site, that maybe there's a button just like on YouTube, you can hit the monetization button and be monetized for the content that you're putting out. In some kind of way, I just think that that will encourage original content as well too. So anyway, that's down the road, but I think that there's the same way like now people are maximizing what we can do online. There's live festivals saying that if we knew what was coming, we would have paid more attention to our streaming offer. We would have paid more attention to being able to stream out the people that couldn't make it to our festival. Now that's all we have is the streaming. So I believe that there's a new way for these platforms to work that really works for people to take their time to even be on it, you know, and whoever starts to maximize it first, it's going to give people a reason why I'm going to spend my time here, because, you know, like it'll be a win-win for everybody. I see that in the future anyway. That's Ho'oponopono. I'm putting it out there.
All right, I'm right with you. Matthew, Patty, do you have final thoughts? Or no, you don't have to have any.
Yeah. You talked about platforms. I know Vimeo. Vimeo is a platform for artists and musicians, and it's not monetized. It's not the same model as YouTube or anything like that. I have some things on Vimeo that are private. I can keep them private until I build up a portfolio. It's film, music, it's a combination, but it's commentary. It's social and political commentary, which is what I do in illustration anyhow. So, and yeah, but Vimeo is a wonderful place to be. Yeah,
Okay.
so. But I wanted to say, you want to be careful building any platform, as you mentioned, Matthew. There is always the potential for corruption. There's always the potential for something to fall apart once it's, again, institutionalized, once it's formed. And that's why it's so important to recognize that there's got to be a way, and this is where Ho'oponopono comes in. There's got to be a way to navigate the evolution, even of a platform, even of an established anything. You want to navigate it and allow for evolutionary cycles to take place so it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah. I have to, agree with that. I was just listening to NPR and they were talking about Facebook has a new panel that weighs what content they take off, you know, because now they've become like this big censor and
Oversight board.
Yeah, you know, and I just, you know, like I just remember I'm on Facebook and I just posted an article about the 1912, whenever the Spanish flu was. It was just an article about the Spanish flu. It was just a mainstream article and they took it off my site. I was just like,
yeah, yes, because
like,
yeah.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, anytime you're establishing some, and there's a hierarchy, and people are in charge of this site, and people are, there's going to be policing. People will be afraid if you put up an article as a 1918 flu.
Yeah.
People will be afraid. They'll be afraid. It's just like that. Well, no, it lasted 18 months, But the censoring, you don't want to cancel everything. You want to know that things exist. You want to be able to have the tensile strength, the resilience to take in information. But any platform should have some sort of caveat. There is information on this site for you to digest and to discern for yourselves. And, that's music, that's art, that's everything.
Yeah.
There certainly is attention. I mean, there's some abusive things get posted and Matthew
Yes.
says, Matthew,
And-
any final thoughts you want to put out there?
I'll just leave you with a quote, I guess, for everybody. Because if you can't put it into your own words, you just quote somebody else who said it better. So in the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other.
All right.
All right.
Great.
I would, before we go, Patty, for people, because I have people that are going to watch this that are really interested in Ho'oponopono. If they want to find out more about Dr. Hugh Lynn and also about mourners, particularly the 14 step, because I mean, I was there and I'm geeking out about the 14 steps. Where we can find out more information about Dr. Hugh Lynn, Joe Vitale, mourners, 14 steps, and that. Just if you could just let us know where, because I'm literally geeking out about it.
Okay, well, it's all over the internet. You can go to also the Morna's original Pacifica seminars.
Pacifica was the site?
Pacifica seminars.
Pacifica seminars, okay.
Yeah, and I've included that in my, in her 14 steps, I think are listed there. And there's Dr. Hugh Lynn is all over YouTube. His interviews, so you can get a flavor of what he's about and his own experience of Ho'oponopono. And then there are other people up there who are doing the tapping, the EFT, who are tapping using Morna's prayer, which is what we used to do in the early 2000s, late 1990s. We just use her prayer and break it down. So there's all kinds of ways to look at this, but the idea, the bottom line with this is with any modality that on a physical side lowers cortisol in the human body. That's what it does physically. Bottom line, it lowers cortisol because you're not resisting anything. And you're using a process to help you to be less resistant to your environment.
Could say letting go of fear, maybe.
Letting go of fear, but that's what it's all part of that. Letting go of fear, letting go of trepidation, opposition, defensiveness.
Yeah, and so Patty, if you send me that info, then we're talking about platforms, so I can put something out on Planetary Gig Society page, or we can share it. But then again, how do we all share these things? I don't know. But
well, I one more thing. Matthew mentioned that he had a Facebook group where they were doing cleaning, and I'm sure there's going to be people like, "Wow, how do I find out more about that?"
I'd like to check that out, Matthew.
What do people need to know to be a part of that group, or what is the process to know more about the group, Facebook group?
I actually don't know how to send people there. It's just called the Ho'oponopono Cleaning Group.
Okay.
And there is a little question in the beginning, just to, you have to say, one of the 4 phrases or explain why you want to be in the group, just to keep out, because you use the word cleaning, which is so funny. I started getting all these cleaning companies showing up. I clean the tile in your kitchen, and I'm like,
amazing.
Yeah, you don't belong here. So
amazing world. But we can post stuff at Planetary Gig Society Facebook page, and that's one place. But
yeah, I haven't figured out how to send a link for that. I'm not that savvy again with
you can probably search Facebook for Ho'oponopono if people know how to spell it.
Yeah, that
Cleaning, it'll find it.
And I'm just gonna add one last thought too. It's like, I was there when Joe Vitale got Dr. Hugh Lynn to say more about everything, and I've been, really into Ho'oponopono for a long time. But still, when I learned about Morna's prayer, I had no idea that was in the context of a wider 14 steps. So
that's the point.
Yeah, I'm just like a new person, because that prayer hit me so hard. I'm saying there's that was step something in a 14 step.
5.
Step number 5. So for me, that's like I'm still new. You know what I mean? So if everybody just stay loose, you're always growing. I think I know something, but I do know that it's not that much. And usually when I know that I don't know that much is when stuff comes in. So
well, maybe we'll have to do a talk on A Course in Miracles and music sometime.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. All right.
For another day, I want to say thank you, everybody. Mathew Dixon, Patricia Raine, Roy Futureman Wooten, Linda Helms. Thank you very much for signing on. Namaste, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.